the underlying text, where sewer service is available. And the following line has the same change. Sewer service areas, and then the underlying text, where sewer is available. The next note is on page 14, in 1818-060, titled Development Requirements and Performance Standards. Under item 4, sub B, titled Areas with Sewer Not Yet Available, Interim On-Site Septic Systems. The first sentence has the same text added. If proposed use or major modification is located outside of a phased sewer service area, and the text is added, where sewers are available, then rural development standards apply. The reason for this is that in the sewer plan, we talk about these phasing mechanisms to bring how the timing is going to happen with the sewer in the UGA. And so I referred to these phased service areas, but didn't explicitly say where sewers are available. And that, I think that change in the text will make it a little more clear. The final change is on page 23, the last section, 1818-120, site plan approval required in the Irondale Port Hadlock UGA. And it's a discussion that if you're doing industrial, mixed use, multifamily, high density residential, single family residential subdivision, you need to have a site plan showing a number of issues that are listed here.
Excuse me, Joel, where was that again?
It's page 23, and it's the code section 1818-120.
Okay.
And all of this striped out language there happened since the agenda request packet was out. What this is there was a parenthetical comment, subdivision in the low density zone, and it says within the optional sewer service area. That's old text that needed to be removed. We don't have an optional sewer service area. The entire UGA is our sewer service area. Item 2 has been stricken altogether, which reads, provisions for the septic needs of the current proposal, and shows how the remainder of the site will accommodate and not preclude urban services and densities. This is old text also that referred to the planning idea that we would have septic areas and sewer areas. That's been stricken. That's not GMA compliant, and it's old text that got left in there and overlooked. And number 3, provides for the future sanitary sewer connection and other utilities. I struck the word future to be more clear. Provides for sanitary sewer connection and other utilities. Those minor changes I wanted to address before we started the hearing, and they're not of any primary significance, but just so that we're looking at the same text. The Planning Commission and DCD worked through GMA hearing board decisions, looked at other communities such as Belfair in Mason County, and tried to understand the best that we could the need of not providing urban densities without urban services, and these were just a couple of text changes to make. So are there any questions that you have before we start, before I turn it back to you?
And it's really the plan to provide urban services rather than there actually being there within the 20-year period. There is a possibility that it won't be there in 20 years, even if it's in the 20-year period, because there are factors that have to be considered, including the LID process that'll pay for part of a sewer in a residential area may not be acceptable for that neighborhood, for example, and so they might protest. There's mechanisms for doing that. So there are ways that you could proceed and at the end of this planning period still not have all the plan implemented, but that's not our requirement, is my understanding. We just have to have it available and have the plan in place and make it possible.
Mostly our 6-year plan is the greatest level of scrutiny. We have to have our 6-year plan very well fleshed out how it's going to happen. It has to be reasonable. The 20-year plan also needs to be reasonable and demonstrate how sewer service will be available to the UGA by 2024. We define availability by sewer utility going into a phased area. Then we're in the sewer business. It would provide the facility that developers could connect to. There's also in here, on the other side of the, not only when it's available, but when you have to partake of this service, there are the guidelines for when it comes down your block. If you're within 200 feet, it's time to connect. There will be a sewer ordinance that will follow in the work that we've contracted Tetra Tech to do. Mid-year, we should be working on the details of how the funding and financing package is going to come together. A lot of this depends on, a lot of how we implement it depends on what it's going to cost. And Belfair, for example, has reduced the cost so significantly that it's not a very major cost to a resident to hook up. That's been through successful fundraising and a mixture of loans and grants and ULIDs. My concern is if we delay this, then we end up increasing the cost because the opportunity costs of not being able to get something started. And so all those details of how the funding and financing will come together will be implemented in a sewer ordinance probably in July. We'll be back in front of you again with some more detail of the results of our fundraising efforts. We have, in a large part, we have to have a UGA to fundraise for the sewer, and so it's a bit of a catch-22, and the faster we can have a compliant UGA, the cheaper the sewer is going to be for everybody, and that's kind of the bottom line.
Mr. Chairman, a couple more points, please. Of course, this area platted in 1890. In the growth management map, we would consider this an area characterized by urban growth. 1999, the county proceeded with what we referred to as the special study, and that was the analysis that we engaged our community into whether we would move into Glen Cove or into the Hadlock area, and or both at that point through the process. And an amendment in 2002 to the comp plan, the board legislatively directed planning guidance to Hadlock. The analysis of the special study, task 2, the Trottier Regional Economic Forecast, included employment goals. A real important issue for the board at that time was to generate additional employment, and that reflected the Trottier forecast into additional acreage in the Hadlock urban growth area. And then, of course, a reminder to the board that you're in this compliance directive from the Growth Management Hearings Board. We're under order in a certain number of components. And David Alvarez is here if you have any legal questions, or David, do you have any points to make to the board?
Well, just that whatever ordinance is passed, that again is to be appealed. Just be aware of that within 60 days of the notice of adoption.
I have a question, possibly to David. First of all, the minor changes in 1818 120. I got to say I was really confused when I was reading that. And, I'm glad to have that clarified. But can you explain why the hearing board will not allow you to build a commercial building with a septic system if you sign a no protest agreement? That you will.
There's really no explanation. They just feel that urban densities require sewers. That's their bottom line. That's their rule. There's really no. They feel that's what the statute requires.
Okay. All right, well, let's open this up for public hearing. We'll have our customary time limits of 3 minutes. Green light will be go. Yellow light, we have 30 seconds left, and red light being stop. So, who would like to go first?